right, Sci-Fi Express Lane, Jeff Carroll. Kind of want to talk about a couple of different things. I was really inspired by the Planet of the Apes universe expansion and just the overall success of it. I mean, it was around before Star Wars and it's still going on strong. However, it did take a major reboot, right? But now they've always used the expanded universe, and I think it's really working. So I want to talk about black people in expanded universes, right? Black people finding their place in expanded universes. And how do we write that, right? First of all, to me, everything could be considered one universe. And when I say universe, think like a sandbox. Some people say a sandbox with writing. When they say, oh, I like to write in the Star Wars sandbox, or I like to write in the Star Trek sandbox. And so what you have to do is you get their Bible of Rules, the Marvel Book of Rules, the Star Wars Book of Rules, and Doctor Who, if you want to write a tie-in story to any of these. And you think of a story within those rules, and boom, you don't bump into any existing heads. You have the same star map, you have the same basis for powers and stuff like that. And I look at, kind of the regular world as just one universe. So how do black people find their space in writing and creating stories in this main universe? And I guess finding our spaces is also within the constraints of wanting to be successful, right? We find our space, we find our place in these spaces, but we still want our stories to carry over and connect and get readers, right? We live in a country where we're 13 to 15%, however you slice it, of the population. So writing for the black community is hard, because even if you get everybody black, that's only 13%. And black people are not monolithic, so I don't know one story that all black people love. Even Black Panther probably only got 70%, because there's people that's not into science fiction. And then there's people that might disagree with the politics of it, whatever the politics were, just people just try to be different. So I've seen black writers, want to be considered, writing black, and they don't have no black characters. They write, mostly mainstream characters. And, when you're writing somebody, you're living in their life. And so as much as they say, yeah, that's what I think of, I'm like, well, that's who you think about? Really? So to me, it's still wild, because, unless you're thinking I know people have default settings. It's just white people, or, it's a white experience. I love Greek culture. I love Viking culture. Shoot, I know people that write horror, and to write a black character in some of the types of horror scenarios would be really hard, because black people behave different in the regular world, and to tie it into this universe doesn't always make sense. So going back to use Planet of Apes as my example, right, of black writers finding black spaces. Planet of Apes used black people in its first in the 70s as a stepping stone for their analogy. It was like, yo, let's show apes treating humans the way white people treated black people. There was no Indian, there was no Chinese, there was no Latino. It was straight subhuman, like they treated black people. They thought that they couldn't read. They thought all this stuff. So apes and Planet of Apes were treating humans like that. They were like, oh shoot, she can talk? What the hell? And it was sort of a cloudy, muttered analogy. It still holds up well now as a movie, but I don't think the analogy of the 70s films holds up that well. Fast forward to 2000, James Franco, I think his name is Franco, started the reboot. We're going to skip over to Mark Wahlberg, Planet of the Apes. That was stupid. But it was ambitious, right? But the Franco one took the analogy and flipped it. Then it said, all right, let's show the origin story of how humans really did treat animals, apes, right? Primates, whatever the heck they want to call them. And let that grow and develop from the beginning. And they used it more of that type of analogy as opposed to, they went hard in on the analogy of animals as opposed to black people, right? In the 70s, they didn't really make it so black because the apes weren't doing anything blackish, but they were living like first world people in a African world as opposed to cavemen in Europe. They weren't living like Vikings. They weren't living like Greeks. They were living like, and mind you, they all had Greek names, Caesar and other ones, but they weren't living like Greeks. It was living like, kind of Africans, maybe the Middle East, right? Maybe the Middle East. But in this new one, they're straight apes, and they're learning from the people in Seattle, Washington. The whole story takes place in Seattle, Washington. They make this experimental Alzheimer's drug, and this is new to the universe. And the drug helps humans so much that it reverses and almost makes them smarter than what they used to. But it expires, and they become vegetables and worse than they were before they took the drug. However, the drug has a side effect. It works on apes, and the apes keep getting more and more intelligent. I guess they must reach a peak of intelligence because it doesn't seem like they get smarter than humans, or smarter than what humans were, or as smart as humans were in the movie. They get to a certain level and they tap out, right? In the 4 or 5 movies, we still see apes with basic fundamental philosophies, right? They haven't figured out technology. Not that that is a sign of intelligence, but they haven't even, speculated about the stars and space, and that is definitely a sign of higher intelligence, speculating about the questions that you ask your society has. So they are getting smarter, or they've gotten smart, but they're still fundamentally stuck on a certain level. That works for the movies, right? The virus also then kills a whole bunch of people. It doesn't kill every human, but the ones that they don't kill are mostly muted. They can't talk. They lose their ability to talk. And so now you're in this world where humans can't talk and apes are intelligent. And they are militarily oppressing. And there's a lot of spaces that needed to be filled in to bring these humans and this universe up to where it was in the 70s. 70s had cartoons. 70s had about 6 movies. I think it even had a television series. So there was a lot of stuff. They had humans that in the 70s developed extra brain power. They actually became smarter than humans had been before the testing, and they would be able to do telekinetic things. So to bring us up to speed, the producers or the people behind Planet Apes use tie-in writers. They haven't explored tie-in books yet, but they have used tie-in comic books. And David Walker, African-American writer, used his series to fill in a blank on how the apes in the planet of the Apes universe got military skill, but he also tied in black people. And that is what I kind of really wanted to highlight. I know it took a long time to build this up, but sometimes I think I talk too fast or I jump around. So, I'm going to take 15 minutes to do these. So I just wanted to really get into it and take my time this time. So in his series, I can't think of the name of the series. That's on my phone, so I can't look it up. But it just came out in 2023. Planet Apes, David Walker, look it up. His series, he expands the story from being in America to being in both Europe and Africa. And in those expansions, the virus went global. But the story took place in Seattle, Washington. Even in the films, it never really shows what happened around the world. So he took this as an opportunity to include black people in a non-token way, in a way that made sense. It's a beautiful example of what black writers can do and have to do to get into these spaces, right? Fit into the universe. Find something that we do that is needed or could be useful to the world. Don't take somebody else's job. Don't say, the black, people in Seattle, it was another black study testing facility. No, he put it in Nigeria, and he had them testing the apes and had them doing different things like working fields, working with agricultural tools, learning in different ways. They had the people treating the apes different. So when the apes got intelligent, they didn't attack and destroy the humans around them because the humans hadn't been oppressive and mean to them. So that worked. And when they started getting attacked, they already knew how to use their agricultural tools, and they just weaponized them. And it was beautiful. And they came across the Atlantic to America to kind of help stabilize America, or just bring some information about, a treatment or how to do the apes. And it was by African American researchers that had been working in Africa, in an African facility. I think it was beautiful because it adds so much to the universe. It brings in black people because the universe still had really no black people. They had a few black people who were military generals, but they had them all thinking the same. And as much as I think black people in America have picked up some of the thinking philosophies of white people, we still don't think like white people. And I hate to see just humans, condensed into Western behavior. Asians think different. Indians from India think different. And Africans think different. They don't all think the same. So when you say, this is what we're going to do, the response needs to be different. All around the world, from culture to culture, even here in America, what they going to do in Kentucky or Utah or Iowa is different than what they'll do in Atlanta, Philly, Washington, D.C., Harlem, Newark. You understand? And even Miami. We have to accept that. And I think those things are beautiful because that's the world that I live in. We don't live in a homogeneous society. Even amongst politics, we got Democrats, Republicans, but black Republicans behave different. They have different values. Black people are Republican more so because they're conservative views, and their conservative views are even different. What's conservative to white Americans is not the same conservative as black Americans. So I say all of that. Anyway, check it out. David Walker not only does that for the African American community, He brings in Europe, and he has a circus gorilla who leads a revolt in Europe, and it's beautiful. It's a small little story that follows his main story in the comic book, but it's beautiful. And like, subscribe, share, and comment. But black writers find spaces in these universes is a beautiful thing. Bravo to David Walker. Peace.